Hi, Tom.
Hello, Lee. How are you?
I'm doing good. Tom, our government just put into place a bunch of new regulations and procedures that are going to particularly affect people trying to get here from Venezuela. Can you try and explain to people what's going on?
Sure. I'll start by saying the United States generally, when they put in policies for immigration, generally may have a carrot, but there's always a stick, and that's what it is with this program. The carrot part of it, and I'll talk about that first, is a program where certain Venezuelans, if they apply and qualify, and if they're what is known as a supporter qualifies, meaning that they're a U.S. citizen and they have the ability and the willingness to support the asylum seeker for the duration of their asylum process, financially, housing, other things, that they may qualify to get a parole into the United States to pursue their asylum case. And as of now, that stands at roughly 24,000 people. And to put that into perspective, in September, there were 33,000 Venezuelans alone in September that crossed the border, and the vast majority of them just wanted to come here to seek asylum. So just put it in perspective of how small the program is. It's also relatively restrictive in that you have to have a passport. So for the people on the journey already to try and come to the United States, it's a very difficult thing to succeed because the vast majority of Venezuelans in total do not have passports. And so the vast majority of the people on this journey, I've seen estimates under 2 digits in terms of percentage, would have a passport, which means this program is really not going to help in any substantial way people who are already on the journey here. And it seems to be geared, at least from my perspective, much more towards Venezuelans who are still in Venezuela and also who have some money and have contacts in the United States that have some money.
So what about all those desperate people who've already tried to get here? They've on the road or they've already arrived at the border. What happens to them?
Yeah, they're in a really tough situation because they would qualify for the limited number of Title 42 exemptions that are possible, but that's a small number. And they're basically stuck in Mexico trying to decide whether to stay there, apply for asylum there potentially in Mexico, or go back if possible. And so they're in a really kind of a danger zone and a very confusing zone of really not knowing what to do.
Do they really have a choice? Can they stay in Mexico?
Well, it's possible that they could stay in Mexico. They could apply with Comar for the asylum process, but that takes years and years and years. And Comar is so far behind now, but it is possible that they could apply. Some of them, they may not all qualify if they've been there too long. There's some time limits. I don't know exactly what it is that you have to apply within a certain amount of time by the time you enter Mexico.
Does this carrot and stick approach have any parallels in prior immigration policy?
Well, almost all of the immigration policy is a stick, and in this case, the stick is much heavier and longer than the carrot, and so it's clearly a deterrence policy. The United States has been grappling with what they perceive as a problem, what some of us perceive as an opportunity. But as a problem, Venezuelans, Cubans, Nicaraguans, because we don't have diplomatic relations with those countries. So under Title 42, we cannot directly return those people to their countries. And heretofore, Mexico has not accepted those nationalities back under Title 42. So this was a big thing for Mexico and for our push to get Mexico to accept up to 1,000 people a day have been reported, 1,000 Venezuelans a day, as expulsions under Title 42. And, there's a lot of rumors and reporting that this program was to be also for Nicaraguans and Cubans and Haitians. And a lot of people think that's still under serious negotiation with Mexico.
So if the people who are coming here, who have been coming here, have been coming out of essentially desperation, do we expect that this is going to deter them?
It'll probably, my guess is it will deter. At what cost is the question. These people are fleeing a regime of, from an authoritarian regime, which is very violent and which provides nothing for their people. So they're either going to stay, and that's going to be the cost, or they're going to try and cross and not be detected crossing. I mean, they're really in a difficult spot.
And this policy seems to assume the continued use of Title 42, which we thought that the administration was actually going to stop using. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so it's interesting because in some of the documents that were filed, there's a vague reference to somehow, if Title 42 goes away, because it is under litigation, that they're working or discussing with Mexico other ways, basically to do the same thing, which would be a total change from what we always viewed as the legal right to asylum and what is the legal right to asylum. And about the only way it seems that they would be able to do that would be to consider Mexico a safe third country or something like that. But it does appear that they're at least thinking about, when Title 42 goes away, how can they do the same horrible thing?
Thanks, Tom. We'll stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, Lee.